Hello and welcome to Diverse and Inclusive Leaders, the podcast show where I interview the most inspirational and thought-provoking leaders of today and unearth their unique stories of diversity and inclusion to help inspire, educate and motivate others to make the world a better place. Today, I am really happy to be joined by a very good friend of mine, but also someone who, without making him blush here, is genuinely someone who has actually really supported me personally throughout the various kind of ups and downs of business. His name is James Millward, and James is the managing director of a business called Eurilait. They're owned by a much larger organisation called Eurilait in Europe. James has had a very interesting career. He's vice chairman of the Provision of Trade Federation, or the PTF for short. He's also the chair of governors for the Whistone Academy, and he's worked for global leading organisations within the FMCG industry, starting within the world of production at Unique, through to working as sales director for McCormick, pre-being COO for British Battles. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Leila. I am red now, aren't I? And that wasn't just you're very kind. Very kind.
It must. Honestly, it's you're making me blush now. But honestly, you're a great guy. You know, I've been actually, very lucky on a personal note, more personal than I often am on podcasts. I've been lucky on a personal note to get to know you and to get to know your lovely family as well, your lovely kids, your wife, and everything like that. And you've been one of those kind of salt of the earth guys throughout my career, kind of actually been there to chat to, and I think that's actually similar, interestingly, to what I've heard through the grapevine when I'm at various events and such like with you and the team, as you've kindly invited me over the years. Who said, James he's very, very human, very kind of down to earth. It's nice to know that business leaders are kind of salt of the earth and humble, and you can chat to them as opposed to the archetypal, almost, how do you put it now? Kind of the white ivory towers that I think maybe formative business type leaders have sat in, but you do kind of willing to get your hands dirty and get in there and chat to everyone. Anyway, without further ado, this podcast is not me talking about you; it's talking to you.
Okay.
So tell me and our listeners, for those of us who don't know as much about you as I do, how did you come to be where you are today? How did this cheeky chap who's in production come to be MD of a cheese business?
Well, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you the story that I tell students when I go and do talks to students as part of Working Options. Lauren as well as I do. Lauren's great, and I really love that cause. And that's part of one of the reasons why I'm chair of governors as well, is to add something back. I'm hugely passionate about the development of people and trying to inspire futures by telling them the things, that great saying, you don't know what you don't know. And that takes me right back to sort of as a 16-year-old at school who was more interested in cricket and cider and music festivals than I was really in knuckling down doing maths, chemistry and biology A-level, thinking, well, it's all right, I'll be a professional cricketer. And then that realization that you're probably not quite good enough. And in spite of what my dad would have told me. And so when I didn't kind of get the grades that I needed to go off and to be a vet, which was my fallback from professional cricket, which of course, because I didn't get 3 A's at A-level, that wasn't going to happen either. And I can remember my tutor at the time, who I hold totally responsible, obviously, because he was my cricket coach as well, who I said, look, there's 3 certainties in life, and that's 1, you're going to die, right? 2, you're going to need your bins emptying, or 3, you're going to need food. He said, so pick one of those industries. And I thought, well, I don't really fancy being an undertaker or a bin man. So I know I'll go off and I'll do something to do with food. So off I went. I went to uni, did food technology, and fell into the food industry. Started in manufacturing at a great company called Gerber Foods before going to Yo Valley. Before an opportunity came up at Yo Valley, after I guess I'd probably been there about 4 or 5 years. I was running the production site at Blagdon, and but working weekends and just had a young family. I thought, I'm not sure I want to be doing this forever. I can't see myself, or I couldn't see what the future looked like. And one thing I talk to kids about now, is, that great book by Stephen Covey. I probably read that when I was about 30, with that whole thing about start with the end in mind, and thought, well, hang on a minute, where do I want to get to? And clearly, at that point, I thought, well, it'll be, sales director. I'd love to be sales director. By this point, by the way, I'd moved into sales as an opportunity came up in sales with a guy within my network at Eurilait, Keith Watts, who was the chairman and also the sales director at the time. He's going, you're great with people. We're growing. You can talk to people. Come into sales. And I thought, fantastic. Don't have to work the weekends anymore. I can play golf. Not that I'm any good at golf, but I thought that was my motivation. I thought, well, it means that I get my weekends back, spend time with my family, and I get a company car. Brilliant. But it wasn't until probably a couple of years doing that, and I read Stephen Covey's book to say, well, hang on a minute, if I want to get to be a sales director, how do I fill my CV, if you like, and gain those necessary bits of experience that get me to be sales director? So that's what I did. I went on a journey of learning and managing different accounts, and I worked with some fantastic people, and I guess over the years, and again, one of the bits of advice I give kids is about trying to learn something new every day, and whether that even today means, I make sure I do it, my kids do it. The first thing they do when they get up is they read the top 10 stories on the BBC, they look at what the pound's doing, and it may sound dull, but it doesn't take long to try and furnish you with what's going on outside of your world, and then how that might impact you in your day-to-day. And equally, can spend a huge amount of time listening to great people, whether that be, I can cast my mind back to probably most jobs that I've had and most people that I've worked with, and with most of them picked up something that they are genuinely better than I am at. And therefore, I will sit there and think, I want to present like James Robinson, or I want to present as well as Justin King, or I want to have the ability to coach and listen to people as well as Chris Burton. Fantastic people that to me are the benchmark of where I aspire to be in each of those individual sort of talents or requirements or of the role of being a GM, a general manager, and actually it's not just about general management, it's about any interaction you have with people, whether you're trying to sell to them, and when I say sell to them, I mean influence them, and that's not necessarily selling bread to Tesco's as much as it is convincing my guy in supply chain to look at a different way of managing trucks and getting a better cost for trucks by double stacking or only sending full trucks out, and just trying to get them to think differently by asking them those questions, because that's what made me think differently all through my career. Is people ask me brilliant questions, and sometimes you could walk out of those meetings thinking, shit, why didn't I think of that? Bloody hell, I'm crap or whatever. So actually go, no, it's made me think in a different way. So the next time I'm much better prepared, because I will have thought, and even I do it today, I'll often think now, hang on a minute, before I make this decision, what will Chris have said? Or what would Chris think? And other people that have inspired and motivated me over my life. And then, taking the opportunities when they came along, and here I am today, as MD of Eurilait, which is a fantastic company to work for. Not only the people here, but my parent company is in France, and by the way, it's Leila and Eurilait. If anyone from Leila listens to your introduction, I'll get into trouble. But no. So Leila, the 70% shareholder, Eurilait 30%. Fantastic people, honestly, and who I love food, and I'm so glad I chose food. Not just because of the current situation that we're in. Everyone still needs to eat food, and my word, there's challenges that we're having to face today and every day, and the future looks very uncertain. But then that's kind of exciting as well. Otherwise, if everything was the same every day, it'd be quite boring. But hugely, hugely inspired by the people that I get to work with, to the point where it's a real, I enjoy coming to work, genuinely have done, and actually more so, I guess, in the last 6 or 7 years, but certainly at Eurilait, it's fantastic. And then because you're in the right frame of mind, that you've got a great bunch of people, and you're only as good as the people that work for you at the end of the day as well. Got a great bunch of people that work for me, and that enables me to free up my mind, so that outside of the 8 to 5 of Eurilait, I've got time to add value back by either working options, which I don't do as often as I'd like to really, but certainly being chair of one of the biggest secondary schools, challenging secondary school in Somerset. I've been a governor now for the best part of 10 years. Incredible. Not so much so that I can add value back, but actually for me, it gave me an opportunity to, again, learn something new. I've worked with some incredible people from completely different backgrounds. very diverse, and selfishly thinking, what can I learn from them that I can bring into my 9 to 5, if you like. And again, the PTF, it's a glorious title. It's Provision Trades, a brilliant organisation, charity, very insightful. Again, like you and everything you do, Leila, you get to meet people not only from your industry, but again, from different backgrounds to try and learn. And that's, to me, that's what it's all about. It's trying to learn something new. It doesn't matter how old you are, whether you're 16 and just making decisions about school and university, or you're 21 and deciding which business to go and work for, or a guy we've just interviewed this afternoon for an internal post in technical. He works in supply chain and an ERP right now, but actually try and get to the bottom of what it is that he really, really wants to do and where he sees himself. So hopefully steer him on the right path. You know, that's where I get my enjoyment out of all of those, by inspiring people, no matter, you know, whether they're 16, 17, 18, or they're 30-year-olds and at a crossroads in their life thinking, well, should I be going down technical, or what route is for me in supply chain? To me, that's what motivates me and gets me out of bed. Mm-hmm. Sorry, that was a bit of a ramble.
No, absolutely, it absolutely wasn't. Actually, that was really fascinating. I think what you're saying there ultimately is about harnessing talent, and it doesn't matter ultimately where that talent comes from, whether you are young and aspiring, as long as you've got the passion and desire and the willingness to learn. And again, I agree with you on the fact that we should and always are learning. I think some of the best leaders in the world never, ever stop learning. And it's almost, you know, I would worry if I thought, wow, you know, I've learned enough now, that's me done. It absolutely isn't. I think, you know, learning, it's a constant journey. And, you know, clearly you're passionate about giving opportunities to those who are ambitious enough to want to be able to further their career. And I'm sure you've learned off a number who have given you the opportunity to step up to the plate when it's really mattered. But tell us a little bit about the individual that you speak of at the moment, who you were talking to, and kind of getting him into the mind frame of what he actually wanted to do. Because I think when you are younger, it's kind of difficult, isn't it? You know, you don't know what you don't know, as you said, and you don't know necessarily what you want to do. And I think there is an element of pressure, especially on the youth of today, to make decisions about what or who they are going to be, when actually life and career, it's a constantly evolving journey.
You're absolutely right. And you know, it's coupled a little bit with working options, and that question about working options, and why it is that Lauren and Paul set it up was to try and get the very best talent to come and work in the food industry, not a bunch of failed vets who thought, well, it's an undertaker of the food industry. I didn't know what I knew when I was 16 or 18, as it was, to go, hang on a minute, the food industry, it's a massive employer. There are literally tens of thousands of really, really exciting jobs, well-paid jobs. And let's not be shy about this. You know, the reason, you know, the reason I wanted to become a sales director or an MD was because, hang on a minute, that's the job that pays the most amount of money. That's going to afford me the lifestyle that A, I want, and B, I can provide for my kids. Harry's in the background there racing. He doesn't race anymore. But that cost me an absolute arm and a leg to get him to be, you know, UK junior karting champion. Not only at the time, but an amazing time. And I wouldn't turn back the clock and do something different, you know, for any money. But you know, it afforded us the lifestyle that we wanted to lead and do lead now. So and that was it. And that was trying to get to the bottom of this guy who's come out of supply chain. He's 12 years in supply chain. A job's come up as the QC manager at Eurilait because of internal promotion. And he's applied for this role. And it's like, you've got no technical experience. You're really, 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 really bright. So we could teach you that. It's not a problem. But tell me what you really want to do. Because, you know, he said he was bored of the job he's doing now. Great, I get that. He needs to feel inspired. Difficult to do more in the function that he sits in right now, if you see it just as that function. But actually, our conversation turned around. So, well, actually, where do you want to be? Great, Gary, you want to earn an extra £1,000 now. Great. Where are you going to be in 2 years' time? And actually, where are you going to be in 5 years' time? And actually, if you thought about where you're going to be in 15 years' time. So actually go away and think about where you want to be in 15 years' time. You're bright enough. You're incredibly loyal. Such a nice guy. His motivation is all about his family. So close to my heart, you know, that, okay, I'll help you. But I'm not going to put you in a role, or if you can have the role if you want, but if I genuinely believe that's not the right role for you, and we're better off looking at a different route, because you're now on my radar, and you can, and I'll take the feedback. Actually, why wasn't Gary on my radar before? And I feel a little bit bad about that. I'm thinking, what have I missed here? Because the guy's clearly bright and very motivated and loyal, but he just doesn't know what he doesn't know. So how do we get Gary and the other Garys in our business to think about the things that they don't know? And, I've got no problem in investing in people and training them and putting time, money and effort into them, only for them to go and leave in 4 or 5 years' time because they've got a much bigger role somewhere else, because those opportunities don't exist here. Because they'll always look back on the time that they spent here with such favor and compliment. And that's what more can you ask for? And the time that they are here, they will reward you doubly, because they will put in the effort, their loyalty, their attendance, their attitude, is all the right things that you want from people. I certainly don't want to hold people back, but I want to make sure that they are making the right choices, primarily for them, but obviously, of course, for us.
Mm-hmm. James, that is just an absolutely brilliant example. Honestly, I just love that. I mean, you just kind of articulated perfectly what I genuinely believe leaders should be doing more of, because it's that honesty and it's that transparency, and also just being, crucially, just upfront and honest with people, really, because it is, as you say, when you talk to people properly about these things, they remember in the future. I think those that do kind of get concerned over people leaving and having spent time, money and effort involved in that, it pays back dividends in terms of the ecosystem of people speaking well and highly about not only their leaders but the organizations they work for. And ultimately the big picture is so much greater than just the immediate 1-2 years of a promotion or holding someone back because of fear of them leaving. I absolutely agree, and it's a great example as well of kind of upward social mobility. I think the other thing is people, for whatever reason, tiptoe around the subject of money and finances, and the fact that they want to earn more money to be able to provide for the family. There's absolutely nothing wrong with saying that, but whether it is because we as a nation, or whether it is just a thing that we have in I guess in the UK, where sometimes you talk about money and it's a bit of an uncomfortable subject, but actually being able to climb the rungs and be able to provide for the family and be ambitious and potentially have money to do and buy nice things. It's not a thing to be ashamed of, and certainly never has there been a more important time than there is right now to be thinking about actually providing for people and doing the best that we possibly can. And financials are a very, very big part of that. Just one final thing, actually, sorry to say, on your example there, is that I think listening leaders are the ones that really do get the most loyalty from their staff. There's a famous quote where people say, people leave bosses, not companies. And I think that is so true. When you have a supportive boss, it absolutely makes the world of difference. The things that you would do for someone that you believe in versus not, it is often the biggest cause of lost talent.
You have to be careful with that, though, and I agree. But you can't be guilty of holding people back either. So I could probably, I'm not going to, but I could list at least 6 people here. And bearing in mind we're a business, this time of year we're only 100 people, but I've got at least 6 people who are phenomenal talent, world-class talent, and I don't want to hold them back. And actually, you take people who might right now have the title of, say, finance director. A great example of, here's somebody who's spent a career in finance, but now, because of the nature of our business and the inclusivity and the involvement that we like getting as a team, certainly as a team of leaders, is now this guy has the capability in the future to be easily an MD GM, and that's opened up his mind. But you don't want to keep him here forever, because actually he's got the potential that really in 2 to 3 years' time, he should be thinking of much bigger things. Now, if we can keep him within the group, perfect. That'd be a great example. But reality is, if he didn't and he went off somewhere else, great. Okay, so I know that's potentially going to happen. And in fact, I want that to happen. So who's going to be in the next FD? So how are we managing that succession? So the people you get in at that position underneath, or who's his protege? How can we develop and train that person so that actually this loyal person that you've created, who's now capable of much bigger and better things, won't feel guilty about leaving either, because they fulfill part of their role is, okay, I've created my own succession.
Mm-hmm.
And again, to foster, and it's quite a difficult thing to talk about, you know, with individuals, because it's not really a taboo thing to be. Sorry, it is a bit of a taboo thing to be thinking.
Oh, it's definitely not talked about. People
Yeah,
don't.
I'm planning on leaving in 3 years.
Yeah.
I encourage it, but I encourage it and say, look, you're going to be bored. You're not going to learn anything else here in 2-3 years time, you know. Therefore, small stuff, but not things that are going to transform your life or whatever. Now, equally, you know, we live in the middle of nowhere, and so beautiful, live in the middle of nowhere, but it's beautiful, and that's the compromise, isn't it? You could go and earn a lot more money going and living M4, Slough, Windsor, you know, West London, or you can be 40 minutes to Bridport and some of the most beautiful coastline in England. We are a mile from Glastonbury Festival, which might not be everyone's cup of tea, my cup of tea, right? Some of the best golf courses.
Definite
it's so
selling
safe.
point. Definite selling point.
Cider. Do you know what I mean? And it's about, when you get to that point, you go, well, hang on a minute, work-life balance. You know, you can get a lot of house for your money in Somerset because we're a rural, a rural part of the world. So it's about, you know, do you chase the dollar, or do you think, hang on a minute, at some point I've reached a point where I'm comfortable with what I can provide my family and I have a fantastic work-life balance. And so maybe that be, you know, maybe that's the route some of these people want to go and they don't leave. But well, that's fine. But you shouldn't hold back talent for your own ulterior motives, if you like. For me, I want to develop those individuals so they can go off and do much bigger, better things, and continue the legacy, hopefully, because they'll appreciate, not the legacy. That sounds really arrogant. The learning of, I really benefited from that by spending a lot of time with some fantastic people who invested in me. I'm trying to do the same with people that work here, or, you know, with, you know, being chair of governors or doing working options, or even, you know, your own kids. You try and set that right example so that they too will, when it's their turn, they will also pass it on. You know, it doesn't surprise me, and this is something that really annoys me sometimes around, you know, even from the early days of having, you know, when the kids were at junior school, when it came to parents who supported the events, whether it be, you know, school disco or quizzes or whatever, it would always be the same 4 or 5 parents. Same as it's the same 4 or 5 parents who end up on, you know, helping out at sports day or open days, or, you know, even to the point of governors. You know, you could get on the governing body and those that wouldn't be interested. And you know, but hopefully, and I don't know how much of that is, you know, is a taught behaviour. I don't know, but hopefully, if it is a bit of a taught behaviour, then at least the guys that are doing well will go on, and they will then in turn, you know, take the next generation forward. And likewise, you know, from my kids' perspective, I hope that at some point they'll give something back to schools and everything else, because they found the value of it from what I did and what they've seen and learned themselves. It's self-fulfilling, isn't it? It's a bit of
it absolutely is. I mean, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think 100%, and I absolutely bet they will do. Met all 3 of them. I was very lucky to meet all 3 of them. My goodness, are they talented. They can sing, they can play music. I was like, oh my goodness, just fantastic. They'll go on and do great things. And, you know, James, before we run out of time today, I wonder whether we can go through, and this is going to be a challenge actually. We're going to do a lightning round, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds to answer each of the next questions.
Okay. 30 seconds a question.
Yes, 30 seconds.
Not a single word was apple or anything. I can't shout out random words. Okay, I've got to think about them and answer them.
Actually, before the lightning round now, on second thoughts, is because we did a panel the other day, which, you know, if you're tuning in and enjoying the podcast, we did a panel the other day, and I was interviewing James and a number of other brilliant leaders from the food and drink industry, and James had to disappear very quickly. I think he was off on a conference call for something or other, and one thing that totally struck me, it's nothing to do with inclusion actually, or maybe it is in one way, I don't know, is that you can freeze cheese. It's just absolutely amazing. Cannot believe that you can freeze trees. And actually, you know, for food and drink lovers around the country, and especially given COVID-19 at the moment, everything that you're seeing, James, give us some tips on the whole.
So okay, I'll give you some is this the 30-second one, or this isn't in the 30 seconds?
Well, you know,
I've just wasted 10.
I think go.
Right. So if you want to slow down the ripening of a cheese, like a camembert or brie, freeze it, and then you can get it out. Just get it to the right point of maturity. And if you're running out of time, don't throw it away. Put it in your freezer. That'd be great. And by the way, a mold ripening cheese like that will cook a lot better as a frozen defrosted product, so the skin goes crispier. Fantastic. If you're using hard cheeses, they don't tend to freeze as well. So cheddar, red Leicesters, manchegos, if you freeze them, they tend to go a bit crumbly and drier. But that's great if you're using them as an ingredient cheese. So if I had a bit of leftover cheddar, it's going out of date. First of all, I wouldn't personally worry about it if it was going out of date, and I might scrape the mold off it, but it's not going to kill you. I think that's the important thing. But actually, if you're worried about it, just grate it and freeze it, and then use it as an ingredient. It's perfectly fine. So you really shouldn't be throwing cheese away because it's going out of date or whatever. But a maturing cheese, definitely freeze it. Fantastic. Baked, camembert, frozen, unbelievable.
Wow. And that is, honestly, that blew my mind the other day when I learned it. And the reason why I bring it up, for those that are thinking, well, what on earth has this got to do with inclusion? But actually, the present time, given COVID, given the fact that there is so much more attention, quite rightly so, on food heroes and those who are on the front line, those who are in manufacturing facilities, and who are producing the nation's food that we are all consuming, is actually, we really do need to think about sustainability and food waste and things like that. And small things do make a difference. And so with fresh products like cheese, and I'm a massive cheese fan, I just love cheese, absolutely love cheese, it's great to know that you don't have to throw it away, right?
That's right, don't have to throw it away.
Exactly. Anyhow, lightning round. So
okay.
first of all, what does diversity, inclusion and belonging mean to you personally?
Me personally, it means feeling involved, and no holds barred. Everyone's in it for the same reason. No one's different. Just because I'm MD doesn't make any difference to the guy who's sweeping the street. Everyone's the same as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm. Great answer. And I'm going to break my own rule here totally and share, so don't tell me off for this. But James said at the beginning of this podcast, he's like, but I'm a white middle-aged guy working in a cheese factory. What have I got to do in inclusion? Didn't quite say it like that. But my point is, absolutely everything, as you've just said then, is to do with inclusion. Every single human being on the planet has got their really wonderful idiosyncrasies, that they're different pieces that make up them as an individual. And actually having individuals like you, James, who are involved in diverse and inclusive conversations and wider teams, there's so many things that encompass D&I. It's not just the physical attributes, gender, race, etc. There's loads of things below the surface, be it mental health, be it
we've talked about that before at the Ritz, haven't we?
Absolutely.
And I'm not 100%, and I struggle with it. Mainly that's probably because I've not experienced it. I have genuinely, the whole of my life, never ever recruited someone on the basis of sex, color, ethnicity, religion, whether they've got, never done it to tick a box. Always recruited someone on merit. And equally, in the people that I've seen, or the people we have here, all recruited on merit. I would never. Now I know it's not the same in every industry, but I really struggle. And I've been quite open with you, and think the more that we have to talk about it, to me, means the more of it that's an issue. I guess to me, we shouldn't be talking about it. To me, it should be a non-starter for, as an agenda item, because it shouldn't be. And I'm not sure if it's a generational thing. If I talk to my kids and said, do you think you're disadvantaged, Beth, for getting a job because you're a girl? They're like, no. And I ask the boys, do you think that Beth's at a disadvantage because she's a girl, or you're at a disadvantage because you're a boy? They went, no. Now, whether that's their naivety, but they're not naive, they're young adults. They're in their, early 20s. They don't see it.
I get what you're saying, but I would challenge the first piece of what you're saying there. I'm totally breaking the 30-second rule completely in the lightning round, but I really, I would say, and I get what you're saying, because I know what you're like personally. Literally, you'll talk to anyone, you'll give anyone an opportunity. Same for me. When I was, many years ago in recruitment, you give me an opportunity, and I always remember that. And that's great about you. But I would challenge the piece about the more you talk about it, the more it becomes an issue. Because actually, I think, diversity, inclusion, and belonging encompasses so much more than just gender, race, ethnicity. It is about the feeling of belonging, feeling you're welcome, the feeling of being able to, I'd say inclusion to a degree is more important than diversity. And so actually, you could have people who come from a similar background,
agreed,
but they are very, very different in terms of their personality types. I mean, it really, it encompasses so much more than just the surface level pieces.
It would worry me, though. It would
For
worry me,
example?
though, if I was A, in a position where I had to recruit, or B, I was involved in a company that were making decisions to recruit, take a board of governors, for instance, or whatever, that I was being, asked to recruit a specific person based on their color or race or gender or whatever, because we needed to tick a box and fill some government, to me, that would be wrong.
Hmm.
Because
Okay.
actually, you recruit, for me, we recruit people and employ people based purely on talent, nothing else. And cultural fit, obviously, but talent, number one.
Agree, but there is also the piece about lack of groupthink. And so, whilst it isn't about ticking boxes and quotas, I just think that the word quotas in and to itself is just an ugly word. If you were to say you were looking at, I don't know, an eclectic mixture of different mindseted people. Mindseted is not a word, but if it was
I
an
know what you mean.
eclectic mix of different people with different mindsets, that is going to breed further innovation. Anyhow, I could spend ages,
Sorry, yes,
do
it's
another podcast on this specific topic. So I'm going to move on because I know that I don't want to keep you from your next meeting. So I know you are very, very, very busy indeed. But next question was, who's been the biggest inspiration to you throughout your career or your life?
Oh, biggest inspiration. I've got 30 seconds, haven't I?
You've got 20 now, 20 seconds now.
Chris Burton.
Who is Chris Burton, for those
Chris
of us
Burton
who
was
don't
my
know?
MD when I was at McCormick. One of the nicest people ever, brilliant leader, fantastic coach. Makes me, even now, and I still speak to Chris. He's my go-to when I'm not sure of something. Which, by the way, sometimes, let's be honest, just because you're MD doesn't mean you know everything. And so sometimes when I want that sounding board, I might ring a couple of people just to make sure I'm doing the right stuff. Chris will be one of those guys. He's such a nice guy, both on a professional level and a personal level. I aspire to be like Chris.
Oh, romance. I love it.
I hope he doesn't see this.
I'm sure he will somehow.
Yeah.
And I also, are there any, I know that you've mentioned Stephen Covey's book multiple times, which we will put into the show notes,
Okay.
the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But are there any other pieces of literature or podcasts, other than this one, of course, that you would recommend or you think?
There's a book on diversity by a girl with Leila, somebody. Yeah, that was all right. No, I don't. I tend to read. Do you know what? I like reading. I like reading non-fiction, history particularly, only because it helps me, as I said before, learn something new every day. Again, one of Stephen Covey's habits is sharpening the saw, learning stuff. So I read a lot of history. I'm learning Spanish at the moment quietly, half an hour every day during lockdown. Not that I'm locked down, I've been in work every day, but I just thought, well, everyone else has started watching Joe Wicks and I'm not going to do any of that. So I know I'll learn Spanish because, I love Spain, I love Spanish food and go on holiday there. I thought that'd be quite interesting. So Spanish and history, not many business books, to be honest. There's loads I've read, but none that inspire me as much as Max Hastings' books, or I love Andrew Marr's books. History of the World, brilliant. Obviously, I've read lots of Bill Bryson and Stephen Hawking and blah, blah, blah. Just great. I love science, love space, love history. Boring, aren't I?
No, it's not boring. Actually, I was looking on my bookshelf then because I remember you told me to get a book ages ago and I've not read it in ages. And I remember you said, this must have been like 7 years ago or something. You said, there's only one book that you'll need to read and it's The 1 Minute Manager. Do you remember?
Okay, yeah.
Oh, I thought you might have said, Who Ate My Cheese?
Who ate my cheese? Well, no, but they're not.
I couldn't. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Sorry, that was the worst joke ever. I've completely lost all of my credibility. Not that I had any to start with. I'm joking. The final question, on a serious note, actually, I wonder if you could go back in time, you could give the young James any advice. And I know that you were maybe a little bit rebellious in your youth, didn't know what you wanted to do, but if you could give advice to your younger self, or for someone else who maybe at that age was considering what they're going to do next, what might you say?
So I'll probably go back to the 4 things that I say to kids when I'm doing this, the working options stuff. So the first one is again, it makes reference to Stephen Covey. Start with the end in mind. Try and have a plan. And again, you don't know what you don't know. So you think, well, hang on a minute. Where do I want to be? It's very difficult when you're 18. If someone says, where do you want to be in 30 years time or 20 years time. If you'd have said to me when I was 18, in 30 years time, you're going to be MD of a cheese company, I'd have gone, great, fantastic. Or, chair of governors or whatever, you think great, but you don't understand what that journey looks like. So I think it's start with the end in mind, but you might need to go and speak to a few people. So don't be scared to ask questions, and don't be scared to approach people, talk about building your network and trying to learn something new every day by following these people who are really good at stuff. And it's very easy to sit there and go, well, they're like this and they're not like that, and I don't like that about them. But actually find the good in people. So everybody does something really well. I'm probably better than you. So I think that's an important lesson. There's another one about being memorable for the right reasons, which is about interviewing for me. And if I say to any kid now, they don't realize how close they are. If they're at an interview, how close they are to getting that job. And therefore, make sure that you don't forget the simple little things like a smile or your shoes are clean and that you're positive. You're very close to getting that job. And actually, I know that you don't know how to do the job, but that's the bit I'm going to train you in. But what I want is someone who's got the right attitude, that's got a really great personality and an open mind to want to learn something new every day, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's all part of this bigger cycle. And the last bit is it's okay to make mistakes. In fact, we are where we are, and I know it sounds daft, but it's okay. I positively encourage, rather than tell people how to do stuff, ask them to go away and have a crack at it, or think about what a solution might look like and have a go. If they get it wrong, they get it wrong, but they know not to do it the same way the next time. And I think that's I think you're petrified when you first start working, especially if you come from a sporting background or whatever, where it's all about winning. You're petrified to get stuff wrong. And actually, I think half the time that holds a lot of young people back, especially this generation. They need the praise, they need encouragement, but you've got to let them get it wrong. So to me, I'd be focusing on those 4 bits. Someone could have told me, instead I figured it out when I was about 30, to be fair, but yeah, if I'd figured it out when I was 18, who knows, Leila?
Who knows what could have happened.
Who knows?
James, thanks ever so much. Honestly, it's just been
Pleasure.
I always love chatting with you. You know that, and actually, it's been a really inspiring podcast. Without making you
Very
blush
much.
again, and
Oh dear.
You're throwing me off now.
Sorry.
By way of a summary, which I always do at the end. I'll keep this brief, I promise. But actually, I think there's been some really inspiring things there from James, and I hope that everyone has really enjoyed the podcast and also sees why food and drink is a really great career to take.
Amazing.
Absolutely fantastic. The great thing about now, if there was a silver lining of the cloud, is actually food heroes are being recognised for what they are. Food heroes and people who are ultimately feeding the nation and doing a great job at it. And I think, James, great testament to ultimately working hard, but also being, very kind of straightforward and straight down the line. What I love is, and I hope more leaders can do this, is genuinely kind of being open enough and making people feel comfortable enough that they can be themselves. Even made me feel, probably even more comfortable than I ever am on podcasts, and kind of, really being yourself, through to, doing the same for others in the business on a day-to-day basis. I think when you give people an opportunity, as James said quite rightly, it is not that is why you should do it, but it absolutely is true. It is karma. It's the ecosystem of giving back. You want to inspire and educate and motivate future generations ultimately to do a good job and to continue on making sure that we can do the absolute best that we can, because really kindness and humanity is, some of the simplest things, but never have they been more important than they have right now. So thank you very much again. Thank you so much for watching the Diverse and Inclusive Leaders podcast. Please do feel free to hit the like button below, or if you'd like to receive future notifications, do ping the notification bell here at the side. If you're interested in the audio version only, you can find it on the following streaming platforms. Any extra info and descriptions will be in the links below. Look forward to seeing you soon.